Well, welcome to Tying Michigan's Best Trout Flies. Today I wanted just to take a few minutes and have a brief discussion on hackle. When I started tying flies in 1954, the only hackle we had available was Indian capes. And that was a struggle to tie small flies, anything less than a 12 really. In fact, back in those days they sold hackle cutters. And I bought a pair once, but I never did get around to using them. But nowadays we have all kinds of different kinds of hackle that will run the gamut in sizes. And I just wanted to start out with the difference between capes and saddles and another alternative to capes and saddles. For instance, with a cape like this is a high quality cape, and it's going to tie mainly in the 10 all the way down to size 22 range. Now, the advantage of that, of course, is if you're tying all that size range, then it's good. But if you're an average tyer, and guys that fish, a lot of us don't tie real small flies and don't fish really small flies. So what happens is eventually you have a collection of capes that have this bunch of feathers that are just sitting around and don't get used. But that's a high quality cape to start with. The other thing that we have available today that we never used to have available is saddle hackle. I wanted to show you a couple of examples of that. And again, a lot of saddles on the market today are geared to smaller flies. In fact, it's getting harder and harder to find saddles that will tie consistently size 10 and 12 flies. Well, I happen to have a few I wanted to show you. And I'm going to be carrying these things on my website. Here's a nice brown saddle that is going to tie, it has excellent feather length, and it's going to tie consistently size 10 and 12 flies. So that's a big bonus in saddle hackle. Another one of the same ilk is this gorgeous Grizzly. Just a ton of feathers on this one. These are all size 10 and 12 feathers. Hard to find. I came across these from a U.S. grower, and I'm going to be putting those on the website if you're interested in anything that size. Here's another one, a bar ginger, tremendous feather length, and these again, this ties all size 10 and 12 flies. Unusual for saddles, but we're going to have them and have them in abundance. So you have another option in today's hackle. If you don't want to buy a cape, or if you don't want to buy a saddle and you're just tying a few flies, some years back the 100 pack came out, and again it looks like this. It has enough feathers on here, enough hackle on here to tie approximately 100 flies in any particular size that you want, and I'm going to be carrying those that I'm making myself. So you might be interested in that as well. As far as consistently tying larger flies, now I wanted to get into this just for a minute because here in Michigan we have, and I wrote it down just so I would remember it. In Michigan we have, that just came to my mind, Hendricksons that run in the size 12 to 14 range. We have March Browns that run in the size 10 to 12 range. We have Gray Drakes that run in the size 10 to 12 range. We have Sand Drakes that run in the size 10 to 12 range. We have ISOs that run in the size 10 to 12 range, and some of them bigger. Then Brown Drakes, which we tie on size 10 and 12 long shank hooks. And you have to have hackle that will, and most of these, of course, nowadays are tied to parachutes, so you have to have hackle that's big enough to make these with. It's tough with today's saddles most of the time. So I have a few that will cover those. And then again, in Michigan we have the hex hatch, the standard size hook to match Michigan's hex hatch is a size 6, 3X long. So where are we going to get hackle to hackle these, especially in parachute styles? Well, I came across some capes that, unlike the one I showed earlier, now this brown one, there's a brown, and here's a Grizzly. And they're not quite as high a quality as the one I showed at first, but the distinct advantage that they have is they're heavily hackled with feathers that will tie the bigger flies. In fact, they don't tie generally below an 18. So you're not going to end up with a whole bunch of feathers that you don't use, but they do go all the way up and tie and have feathers that will tie hexagenous size flies. So you're going to get a range of flies on these capes that will tie generally from size 16 all the way up to size 6. Now that's a big deal for Midwestern fly tiers because of all the big drakes that we have in Michigan and the Midwest. So I just wanted to make sure that I showed you those. And before we conclude, I brought another saddle out that, in all honesty, I've never seen anything like it. I really don't know what to do with it. I don't know whether to frame it or to auction it off or what to do with it because it is, and I'm going to hold it up so you can see, hopefully see the length of it. This saddle literally has feathers that are 26 inches long. Now they're not all that long. It's an odd saddle. It's not just in the length of the feather, but it's unusual in another way. This is probably one of the only saddles I've ever seen that will tie a full range of dry flies from size 12, or excuse me, from size 10 all the way down to size 18. Again, I think I'll probably just keep it for myself. It is a very, very unusual set of feathers. I wish I could find more of these. Unfortunately, this is the only one I've ever seen like this in my lifetime, so I don't think we're going to get too many more in the near future. But keep those points in mind. There are capes available now that will just tie from size 16 on up to 6. Saddles I have available now that will tie all the 10s and 12s that you want. So, and again, of course, if you're tying small, the standard capes or the high quality capes are going to go all the way down to size 22, and you can always buy 100 packs if that's what you want. So, just a few thoughts on Hackle, and I hope this helps you.